May 1940. A muffled, stuffy darkness inside a Panzer III tank. The air here is a thick, poisonous cocktail of diesel fumes, the smell of white-hot metal, and the acrid, sour male sweat ingrained into every inch of their uniforms. 4 crew members, 4 young men, buried alive in this vibrating steel tomb. They have not emerged from here for 3 days. Outside, the gentle, pastoral spring sky of France, idyllic landscapes they see only through the narrow slits of the vision blocks, like a distant, unreal painting. Inside, their personal, man-made, roaring hell. The endless, monotonous, soul-crushing grinding of the tracks has become the only law of their universe. It screws into the skull, displacing thoughts. It replaces the rhythm of the heart. It is the soundtrack to their slow, inevitable decay. They do not sleep. They are strictly forbidden to sleep. Their eyes, inflamed and red like those of vivisected rabbits, are unnaturally wide open, and in their fully dilated pupils splashes a crazed, synthetic, cold fire. They are the Führer's ideal soldiers. They are living machines of flesh and steel whose gears are lubricated with a chemical poison that burns out the soul. The world watches in silent, paralyzed horror. The German army does not advance. It surges like a fiery wave at a speed military history has never known. They crush defenses, break through fronts, not stopping day or night, like demons ignorant of the laws of physiology. Allied newspapers choke on panicked headlines describing these Teutonic supermen, soldiers who know neither fatigue, nor fear, nor pity. But behind every word of this horrified admiration lay a monstrous, fundamental error. These are not supermen. These are men whose blood is poisoned with methamphetamine. In the sweat-soaked palm of every tank crewman, in the breast pocket of every stormtrooper, in the medical kit of every Stuka dive bomber pilot, lies a small white pill in a tin can or a celluloid tube. The official name, Pervitin. The manufacturer, the respectable solid Berlin firm Temmler. This is the true secret fuel of the Blitzkrieg. A secret weapon hidden in plain sight, in every pharmacy and in every soldier's haversack. The Wehrmacht High Command ordered 35 million doses for the invasion of France alone. 35 million tablets of pure, laboratory-grade madness, which were issued to soldiers disguised as vitamins for alertness, like ascorbic acid. This was not just a military campaign, it was the most large-scale, most cynical, state-sponsored drug intervention in human history. But they did not yet know that this was only the beginning of their fall. And this was only the first triumphant act of a tragedy that would consume not only the army, but the entire nation, reaching its very dark heart, the bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery. What began as a miracle pill was destined to end in agony, in ruins, in madness. And no one could have foreseen how deep this abyss was. But to understand the origins of this collective madness, this chemical march to the abyss, one must go back several years, to peaceful pre-war Germany, to a country desperately searching for a miracle and willing to pay any price for it, even the most terrible one. And it found its miracle in the pharmacy around the corner, in a small glass vial with a bright label. After the national humiliation of the First World War, after the Versailles Diktat and the economic chaos of the Weimar Republic, Germany was a nation obsessed with the idea of revenge and a quick solution to all its problems. The country craved a panacea for the paralyzing economic collapse, for the deepest national depression, for the corrosive feeling of its own inferiority. People pushing wheelbarrows full of devalued millions of marks through the streets to buy a loaf of bread were ready to believe anything. Hunger, despair, and violence reigned on the streets of Berlin, Munich, and Hamburg. Yesterday's officers of the Kaiser's army begged on street corners, their medals tarnished by dirt and shame. It was on this rotting soil of humiliation that the seeds of National Socialism, which promised immediate healing, sprouted. But political promises were not enough. The nation required a physical, tangible miracle, and the German pharmaceutical industry, the most advanced and immoral in the world, was ready to provide this panacea. It had already given the world aspirin and heroin. Now it was time for something new, for something that would change everything. And they did not yet know that they were creating a monster that would nearly devour them as well. In 1937 in Berlin, in the sterile, white-lit laboratories of the Temmler-Werke Company, an ambitious chemist, Fritz Hauschild, inspired by the success of the American stimulant benzedrine, which was used at the 1936 Olympic Games, perfected the formula to a diabolical degree. He doesn't just copy, he creates a monster. He creates a methylated analog of amphetamine, a substance far more powerful, more euphoric, and causing a much stronger, almost instantaneous addiction. It was named Pervitin. The drug was immediately patented and prepared with unprecedented aggression for mass release onto the civilian market. They had no idea that they had just created the fuel for the coming world slaughter. Hauschild works obsessively through the night. He sees his discovery not just as a medicine, but as the key to mobilizing the entire nation. He imagines a Germany where no one gets tired, where a worker stands at his machine for 16 hours, where a student can learn in one night what used to take a week. It was the idea of total efficiency brought to a chemical absolute. The moral side of the issue did not concern him. He was a new type of scientist, a scientist of the Third Reich, for whom the result was paramount, and man was merely a resource. The advertising campaign was a masterpiece of cynicism and Goebbels-esque manipulation. Pervitin was presented not as a cure for an illness, but as a stimulant for healthy people, an attribute of the new, dynamic lifestyle in the resurgent Reich. It was the awakening pill for everyone. Housewives tired of domestic routine could take a pill and scrub floors and cook dinner with tripled energy. Long-haul truck drivers could swallow them to stay awake at the wheel for days on end, driving their trucks on the brand-new autobahns. Students could cram through the night, feeling no fatigue before exams. It was the promise of superhuman abilities for the common person, a ticket to the bright National Socialist future. But behind this illusion hid a one-way ticket to a personal hell. Posters that filled the streets of German cities depicted radiant, energetic Aryans, enthusiastically looking toward a bright future. The slogan hit the mark. Pervitin invigorates and increases concentration. It was sold in any pharmacy, completely without a prescription, like cough drops. It became a symbol of a new, energetic Germany, one that was finally rising from its knees and surging forward. But behind this shining facade of national awakening, the snarl of a monster lay hidden, merely biding its time. The situation quickly reached a grotesque, Kafkaesque absurdity. One well-known Berlin confectionery company, Hildebrand, released chocolates onto the market with a filling of pure methamphetamine. Pralinen mit Pervitin, pralines with Pervitin. Each chocolate in the fancy box contained nearly triple the doctor-recommended dose. The advertisement brazenly convinced customers, Hildebrand chocolate, always a delight, helps you stay energetic and cheerful. It was the perfect gift for a friend, wife, or mother. A small box of joy that provided a burst of energy and caused almost instant addiction, guaranteeing repeat sales. The nation was enthusiastically getting hooked on speed. Let's imagine an ordinary Berlin housewife, Frau Schmidt. 4 children, endless laundry, cooking, cleaning in a small, dim apartment. Her husband comes home from the factory tired and irritable. Life is an endless, gray, grueling marathon with no finish line. One day at the pharmacy, she sees a bright package of Pervitin. For energy and a good mood, why not try it? She swallows 1 pill. 20 minutes later, her gray, faded world explodes with color like in a newsreel from the UFA studio. She doesn't walk, she flies around the apartment. The house is sparkling clean. A 5-course dinner is ready for her husband's arrival. The children are washed and combed. She feels like the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect German woman, the embodiment of the party's ideals. Her husband, returning from work, is astonished. Instead of a perpetually tired, worn-out woman, he sees an energetic, cheerful wife. He praises her. For Frau Schmidt, this praise is like a breath of fresh air. She finally fits the image that the propaganda imposes on her. But the next day comes the cruel, merciless reckoning, terrible apathy, a leaden heaviness in her body, anguish, a headache, and the world once again becomes gray and hostile. The children are irritating. Cooking seems an impossible task. The only salvation, the only way out, is another little white pill. Thus begins her personal quiet hell behind the closed doors of a cozy bourgeois apartment. First, 1 pill a day, then 2. Then she starts secretly buying the energizing chocolates. Her hands begin to tremble. She loses weight. Dark circles form under her eyes. But she continues to smile and maintain the facade of a perfect family. She has become a slave to the little white pill. And there were hundreds of thousands like her. No one, of course, spoke of the side effects. In the advertising brochures, there was not a word about addiction, psychosis, or heart attacks in young and healthy people. Germany rapturously embraced its new miracle without even suspecting that it was actually rehearsing the script for a future military madness. What began as a harmless remedy for melancholy and fatigue was already preparing to become the fuel for the deadliest machine of destruction in history. And the man who would press the gas pedal of this machine had already appeared on the horizon. The key figure in the military adaptation of Pervitin was Professor Otto Ranke, director of the Institute for General and Military Physiology at the Military Medical Academy in Berlin. Ranke was not just a scientist. He was a fanatical patriot, a man who sought a way to give the German soldier, the Soldat, a decisive, absolute advantage on the battlefield. He saw in Pervitin the potential of a weapon capable of changing the very nature of war, of nullifying its fundamental laws, the need for rest and the feeling of fear. He believed he had found the philosopher's stone of war. Ranke began with the most reliable test subject, himself. He conducted brutal, methodical experiments, taking huge, ever-increasing doses of the drug and, with pedantic scrupulousness, recording his sensations in a laboratory journal. He noted an incredible, almost supernatural surge of energy, crystal clarity of mind, and, most importantly for him, the complete disappearance of the basic human need for sleep. He could work for 48, then 60, and on one occasion even 72 hours straight, without feeling the slightest fatigue, feeling like the Superman from Nietzschean treatises. He was euphoric about the prospects that had opened up. He felt like a prophet of a new military era. In his notes, he describes this state with almost religious ecstasy. Consciousness is cleansed of everything superfluous, only the will remains, a pure, concentrated will to act. The body becomes an obedient instrument, knowing no weakness. Fear is a chemical reaction, and I have found a way to switch it off. He ignored the fact that his hands had begun to tremble, and that at night, when he did try to sleep, he was haunted by nightmares. He was obsessed with his idea. He had found a way to create the perfect soldier, and the price did not interest him. He then moved on to experiments on groups of young officers and medical students, volunteers eager to serve the Reich. The results surpassed all, even the most daring and insane expectations. Under the influence of Pervitin, the test subjects demonstrated true marvels of endurance, solved the most complex navigational and tactical problems after 2 days without sleep, and, most importantly, completely lost their sense of fear and self-preservation instinct. The alarming symptoms, profuse cold sweat, dizziness, unmotivated fits of uncontrollable aggression, and paranoia, Ronke deemed to be insignificant and acceptable side effects. The main thing had been achieved. He had found a way to switch off the human in the man, leaving only an obedient, efficient mechanism. Ronke wrote an enthusiastic, almost poetic report to the Wehrmacht High Command. He claimed that Pervitin was capable of overturning all military doctrine. An army that does not need rest could move non-stop, like a phantom, catching the enemy by surprise, breaking its will, destroying its logistics and communications. The generals, raised on the Prussian traditions of iron discipline and daily routine, initially treated the idea of a chemical soldier with skepticism and disgust. But the temptation was too great. The temptation of a quick and easy victory proved stronger than age-old traditions. In September 1939, during the invasion of Poland, the Wehrmacht conducted its first large-scale field test. The medical services of the Luftwaffe and tank units received limited but significant batches of Pervitin. Pilots, flying 5 to 6 combat sorties a day, and tank crews, conducting multi-day forced marches across rough terrain, regularly took the tablets. Reports from the front were staggering. Soldiers turned into ruthless, tireless automatons. They did not feel pain from minor wounds, nor did they experience compassion for the enemy or the civilian population. They simply carried out orders, again and again. Any ethical and medical doubts were cast aside in the face of deafening success. The monster was officially unleashed. After the triumph in Poland, Pervitin was immediately adopted by all branches of the armed forces. The Temmeler factories in Berlin and Jena switched to a round-the-clock 3-shift work schedule, churning out millions upon millions of tablets. The white powder, the base for the tablets, was produced in such quantities that a fine, poisonous dust covered everything around, settling on the walls and in the workers' lungs. The workers themselves, to withstand the hellish pace, also took Pervitin, becoming the first civilian victims of the war machine. They worked in a toxic cloud, slowly being poisoned, but under the influence of the drug, they noticed neither a cough nor weakness. They were the first cogs in the machine that would soon grind up all of Europe. An internal document for military doctors, the so-called Decree on Stimulants, recommended a dose of 1 to 2 tablets to overcome an acute need for sleep. In it, somewhere at the bottom, in fine print, it was mentioned that the drug is highly addictive and should be used only in exceptional cases of extreme combat necessity. But what was created as an exception would very soon become a terrifying rule. But at the front, this decree instantly turned into a meaningless piece of paper. Pervitin was handed out like ascorbic acid before every battle, before every night march. Soldiers came up with dozens of nicknames for it. Stuka Tabletten, tablets for Stuka dive bombers. Panzer Schokolade, tank chocolate. Or, with dark humor, Göring Pillen. Göring pills, known for his obesity and love of stimulants. Soldiers took it by the handful to suppress the animal fear before battle, to endure multi-day forced marches, to simply not go insane from the horror, exhaustion, and sight of death. The drug became a systemic element of the war machine, as important as gasoline for tanks and cartridges for rifles. The logistical machine of the Third Reich operated with impeccable precision. Neat tin cans with the blue Temmler logo became as integral a part of a soldier's ration as canned meat, hardtack, and ersatz coffee. Quartermasters issued them to company and battalion commanders before every major operation. Field medics in hospitals unhesitatingly injected liquid methamphetamine into the seriously wounded to raise their morale and return them to duty. No one thought about the consequences anymore. The Reich was preparing for its main decisive blow, the invasion of France. But even the boldest planners did not realize what a Pandora's box they were opening. Case Gelb was a gamble of unheard-of audacity. The tank wedges of Generals Guderian and Rommel were to break through the dense and hilly Ardennes mountains, which the French command considered absolutely impassable for armored vehicles, and, emerging in the rear, cut off and encircle the main Allied forces. This plan demanded inhuman, unimaginable speed and endurance from the soldiers. This plan required Pervitin. An order for 35 million tablets was placed and filled in the shortest possible time. This was enough for every soldier at the spearhead of the main attack to go without sleep for weeks. The chemical blitzkrieg was fully ready to begin. Let's pause for a moment and imagine one of these soldiers. A young tankman, a gunner in a Panzer III. Let's call him Hans. He is 20 years old, from a quiet Bavarian village. Before the war, he had never seen anything but green alpine meadows and cows. Now he sits in the red-hot, rumbling belly of a Panzer. May 1940. Their tank column, like a giant steel serpent, has been rushing along the roads of Belgium for 3 days, sweeping away roadblocks, barriers, and the remnants of shattered enemy units in its path. Hans has not slept for 72 hours. His eyes have turned into 2 inflamed slits, from which tears stream from the strain and dust. His hands tremble from the constant vibration and fatigue. He is on the verge of physical and nervous collapse. He can't go on any longer. He feels his consciousness slipping away, reality disintegrating into meaningless fragments of sounds and flashes of light. The tank commander, a stern Feldwebel with an iron cross from the Polish campaign, notices his condition. He doesn't say a word of sympathy, doesn't offer to relieve him. He just claps Hans on the shoulder and silently holds out a small white tablet to him. "Here, Hans. Tanker's chocolate. It'll perk you up." Hans takes it without the slightest hesitation and swallows it, washing it down with a sip of warm, metallic-tasting water from his canteen. He has seen everyone else do it. It has become routine. It's normal. It's part of a soldier's job, like cleaning a weapon. He doesn't know that he has just swallowed the bait from which he will never break free. He doesn't know that this little tablet will burn his soul to ashes. 10, maybe 15 minutes pass, and Hans's world is transformed. First, the leaden, nauseating fatigue vanishes, as if turned off by an invisible switch. It simply disappears, dissolves, giving way to a ringing emptiness. Then a wave of icy, electric energy runs through his entire body, from the nape of his neck to the tips of his fingers. His heart begins to pound with a frantic machine gun speed, thundering in his ears louder than the tank's engine. His breathing becomes rapid and shallow. The grinding of the tracks ceases to be torture. It becomes music, the hypnotic rhythm of his new, accelerated existence. The world narrows to the narrow vision slit. The road, the crosshairs of the sight, the enemy. Nothing else exists. No past, no future, no fear, no pain, no Bavarian village, no mother's face. There is only the order and the objective. Hans feels like a god. He is one with his war machine. He is its brain and its sting. He is the Führer's iron fist, delivering retribution. Fear has vanished. Doubts have vanished. Empathy, compassion, pity, all these unnecessary, hindering atavisms have disappeared, burned away in a chemical flame. When he sees a column of French refugees on the road with carts and children, he feels nothing but cold annoyance. They are a nuisance, an obstacle on the path to the objective. He hears the commander's order in his headphones, "Forward, don't stop," and hits the gas. He obeys the order. In his brain, overclocked to its limit by synthetic chemistry, there is only one directive: forward, without stopping, without pity, without sleep. But this was only the first euphoric stage of a diabolical deception. What would follow would turn his life and the lives of millions like him into smoldering ruins. The chemical miracle had its price, and the bill had already been presented for payment. The Blitzkrieg in France was a stunning triumph for Pervitin. The tank divisions of Guderian and Rommel, fueled by methamphetamine, broke through the Ardennes and reached the English Channel coast in just 10 days. They moved with such incredible speed that staff officers in Berlin couldn't update the maps on the walls fast enough. Soldiers went without sleep for 3, 4, and sometimes 5 consecutive days. They were at the peak of their physical and mental capabilities, or so it seemed to them. They were convinced they were making history, not realizing that history was making monsters of them. But behind the facade of euphoria and a sense of omnipotence hid a dark, ugly underside. After several days of continuous use, without sleep or proper food, Pervitin began to mercilessly destroy the psyche. The soldiers developed severe paranoia. They imagined an enemy hiding behind every tree, that they were being pursued by invisible saboteurs. At night, they would open fire indiscriminately at shadows, at bushes, at the rustling of leaves, and sometimes at their own comrades, mistaking them for the enemy. Incidents of friendly fire increased sharply, later attributed in reports to combat stress and fog. This was a lie. It was amphetamine psychosis on the scale of an entire army. Then the crash inevitably came, a brutal come-down, throwing the body and mind into an abyss of exhaustion. When the effect of the pills finally wore off, it wasn't a healthy sleep that came, but a total, comatose shutdown of the body. Soldiers would literally fall into a state close to lethargy for 24 or even 48 hours. A tank driver could fall asleep right in the middle of a battle, continuing to drive his vehicle at full speed until it crashed into a tree or fell into a ditch. A pilot could lose consciousness while performing a turn, sending an expensive fighter into a spin. Entire units would suddenly become completely non-combat effective because their supply of stimulants had run out. Commanders had to make forced, unplanned stops to let the men recharge, that is, take a new dose and restart the vicious cycle. The Army had turned into an army of drug addicts whose combat effectiveness depended on the timely supply of the drug. Catastrophic physical problems also began. Heart attacks in young, 20-year-old, completely healthy soldiers ceased to be a rarity. The exhausted heart, working at its limit, simply could not withstand the furious pace and would fail. Inside cramped tanks and airplane cockpits, people died, not from enemy bullets, but from the failure of their own organs. Many developed prolonged psychoses that did not go away even after they stopped taking the drug. They heard voices, saw horrific hallucinations, and suffered from paranoia. These men were quietly removed from the front, sent to rear hospitals with a diagnosis of combat-related psychological trauma so as not to spoil the victory statistics and to avoid admitting the obvious. The wonder weapon was devouring its own army from within. Even General Heinz Guderian himself, the architect of the tank breakthrough and the father of the Blitzkrieg, indirectly acknowledged the problem in his post-war memoirs. He wrote of the extreme nervous exhaustion of his tank crews, of the need to take pauses to let the men recover and rest. He, of course, did not mention Pervitin by a single word, but the military doctors working on the front lines knew the truth. They saw soldiers with trembling hands and parchment-like skin, with a crazed, hunted gleam in their eyes, begging for another pep vitamin. They saw the heroes of the Reich turning before their very eyes into twitchy, emaciated, prematurely aged drug addicts. But the ruthless war machine demanded they move forward. And so, with a heavy heart, they continued to write prescriptions for madness, becoming accomplices in this mass poisoning. However, the triumph in France was only the beginning. The real hell awaited the Pervitin army in the east. The invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, Operation Barbarossa, opened a new, much more terrible chapter in the history of military methamphetamine. Here, in the vast expanses of Russia, the war took on a completely different character. This was not a swift stroll along European roads, but a total war of annihilation, a war against nature, against space, against time itself. And the role of the drug in this war changed. It ceased to be the fuel for the Blitzkrieg. It became a means of survival in hell. The winter of 1941 arrived, a terrible, apocalyptic Russian winter for which the Wehrmacht was completely unprepared. The temperature dropped to -30, -40 degrees. Tank engines froze. The lubricant in weapons turned to stone. Soldiers in their summer uniforms froze to death by the thousands right at their posts, and it was here that Pervitin found its second, even more sinister purpose. It began to be issued not for alertness and attack, but simply to keep from dying. The pill, which sped up metabolism and made the heart beat faster, created an illusion of warmth, allowing a sentry to stand for a few extra hours in the icy wind before dropping dead. Pervitin became the last barrier between life and a frozen death. Let us imagine another soldier. Let's call him Klaus. He is an infantryman, lost somewhere in the snows near Moscow. His company has been almost completely wiped out. He is hungry, frostbitten, and tormented by dysentery. For many kilometers around, there is only white, silent snow and the black, charred skeletons of Russian villages. At night, he must stand guard. Sleep means certain death from the cold. Fear means madness. His commander gives him the last 2 Pervitin tablets. Klaus swallows them. Artificial energy fills his emaciated body. He no longer feels the cold. He doesn't feel hunger, but his mind begins to disintegrate. It seems to him that the shadows of the trees are coming to life, turning into the figures of partisans. Every crack of a frozen branch is the sound of an enemy's rifle bolt. He sees the faces of his dead comrades in the snowdrifts, whispering his name. By morning, when they come to relieve him, He is standing, clutching his rifle with crazed, unseeing eyes, muttering incoherent words. He survived that night, but the man named Klaus died, leaving behind only a trembling, paranoid shell of himself. While millions of soldiers at the front were on military issue Pervitin, in the very heart of the Reich, in a damp concrete bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery, its own special and far more concentrated narcotic drama was unfolding. The main drug addict of the Third Reich was not some nameless soldier, Hans. It was Adolf Hitler himself. His addiction was a key to understanding many of the irrational and catastrophic decisions that led Germany to its complete collapse. His personal physician, Professor Theodor Morell, was a living caricature, the complete opposite of the propagandized Aryan ideal, corpulent, bloated, with greasy, sweaty hands, and the dubious reputation of a charlatan who treated Berlin's bohemians. But Hitler trusted him implicitly, calling him my savior. Morell was an unsurpassed master of vitamin shots. The Führer's every day, starting from around 1941, began and ended with injections. What Morell hypocritically called vitamins and tonics was in fact a monstrous, unthinkable cocktail of dozens of powerful drugs that would have killed a horse. Everything was used: testosterone, extracts from bull testicles and prostate glands, countless hormones, dangerous sulfonamides. But the main core ingredients of this diabolical concoction were hard drugs. When Hitler needed to be invigorated before an important meeting or public speech, Morell would inject him with Pervitin intravenously. When the Führer suffered from excruciating stomach pains, often of a psychosomatic nature, he would receive an injection of Eucadol, a powerful opiate, a close relative of heroin, known today as oxycodone. To clear the nasal sinuses and reduce mucosal swelling, pure cocaine was used in the form of drops and spray. Hitler was a walking pharmacological encyclopedia, a testing ground for his doctor's most risky experiments. By 1943, Hitler, who had built his entire public reputation on ostentatious sobriety, asceticism, and vegetarianism, was already a complete polydrug addict, utterly dependent on daily injections. His inner circle, Göring, Goebbels, Speer, watched his rapid physical and mental degradation with unconcealed horror. He suffered from an uncontrollable tremor in his left hand, which he constantly tried to hide by putting it behind his back or pressing it against his body. His skin had taken on an unhealthy grayish-yellow hue. His teeth rotted and began to fall out. The decisions he made became increasingly irrational, increasingly detached from military reality, dictated by paranoia and stubbornness. His famous fits of rage were not just a manifestation of a choleric temperament, but classic outbursts of uncontrolled aggression, characteristic of amphetamine psychosis. Let us recall one of the key meetings in late 1944 during the Ardennes offensive, the last desperate attempt to turn the tide of the war in the West. The generals report a catastrophic fuel shortage, the superiority of Allied aviation, and the complete exhaustion of the troops. They plead for permission for a tactical retreat to preserve the remnants of the elite tank divisions. Hitler, having just received another injection of vitality from Morell, jumps to his feet. His eyes burn with an unhealthy, feverish gleam. He does not listen to reason. He screams, spittle flying, that retreat is treason, that the will and fanaticism of the German soldier will overcome any material difficulties. He pounds his fist on the map, giving the order to advance at any cost, throwing the last reserves of the Reich into the furnace. The generals look at him and see not a leader, but a madman who has lost all connection to reality, whose decisions are dictated not by strategy, but by a chemical stupor. They remain silent because they fear his anger, and this silence costs Germany hundreds of thousands of lives. In the final months of the war, in the oppressive, claustrophobic atmosphere of the Führer bunker, Hitler's addiction reached its terrifying peak. He demanded up to 10 injections a day from Morell. The veins in his arms were so punctured, inflamed, and covered in thrombi that Morell had to find new places for the injections, on his legs, on his torso. The man who dreamed of building a 1,000-year Reich on the principles of racial purity, will, and iron discipline, had turned into a trembling, paranoid, mumbling wreck, completely dependent on the needle of his personal dealer. The drug that had helped him conquer Europe was now devouring him from the inside, accelerating the agony and collapse of his crumbling empire. The irony of history was cruel, merciless, and absolutely just. The fall of Berlin in May 1945 marked the end of the Third Reich, but not the end of the story of Pervitin. Millions of soldiers who had gone through the hell of war, through the chemical madness of the blitzkrieg and the meat grinder of the Eastern Front, returned home. They were broken not only physically and psychologically. Many of them brought with them a new, invisible enemy that had taken root in their blood and minds: drug addiction. They returned to a country lying in ruins, to a world they no longer understood and which did not understand them. In the chaos and poverty of post-war Germany, it was not difficult to get Pervitin or its analogues. It was still being produced, although in smaller quantities, and was actively sold on the black market. For many veterans, it became the only way to cope with post-traumatic stress disorder, to suppress nightmares and intrusive memories of the horror they had experienced. For others, it became a chemical crutch, helping them survive in a ruined, starving country and find the strength to work to feed their families. A habit instilled by the Army command became a personal tragedy. The so-called German economic miracle, the Wirtschaftswunder, began. Germany, lying in ruins, rebuilt its industry, cities, and infrastructure with incredible, almost fantastical speed. People worked to the point of exhaustion for 12, 14, 16 hours a day, driven by the desire to forget the past and build a new life. And very often this economic miracle was fueled by the same good old methamphetamine. Construction workers, truck drivers, even office employees continued to use stimulants to withstand the inhuman pace of the country's reconstruction. A habit born in war found a new application in peacetime. The Reich's legacy proved to be far more enduring than anyone could have imagined. Imagine a ruined Hamburg, 1948. A former tank operator, Hans, the same one who swallowed pills on the road to Dunkirk, now works clearing rubble. He is 30 years old, but looks 50. Every night he dreams of burning tanks, the screams of the wounded, the screeching of tracks. During the day, he can barely lift a shovel. His body aches from chronic fatigue and pain. In a beer hall, he meets a former Feldwebel from his unit. The man, seeing his condition, winks and pulls him aside. For a few marks, he sells Hans a small bag of white powder. "The same as before," he whispers, "only better. It will help you get back on your feet." Hans knows it's poison, but he also knows that without it, he simply won't be able to go to work tomorrow, and he once again makes the choice that the Reich had already made for him once before. The circle is complete. Only in the 1970s and even 1980s did the authorities in West and East Germany finally begin to seriously combat the epidemic of amphetamine proliferation by introducing strict prescription limitations and criminal liability. But it was already too late. The chemical formula of Pervitin, perfected in the Temler laboratories and tested on the battlefields of World War II, did not disappear. It became the property of underground chemists around the world, from Asia to America. It broke free like a genie from a bottle and began its own global conquest. It mutated, becoming even more crude, toxic, and dangerous, transforming into what is known today on the streets by names like ice, crystal, and crank. Modern homemade methamphetamine is the direct and ugly descendant of the Aryan wonder drug. It is produced in unsanitary basement labs from poisonous industrial ingredients such as paint thinners, drain cleaner, and lithium batteries. But its essence remained the same, a false, short-term feeling of euphoria and power, followed by the inevitable and complete destruction of the body, mind, and soul. The ghosts of the chemical blitzkrieg still roam our world. They live on in tales of super soldiers, in secret reports about the use of combat stimulants in modern armies. They look at us with the empty, burned-out eyes of drug addicts on city streets, their faces covered in sores and their teeth rotted, an exact copy of what the Führer became in his bunker. The story of Pervitin is not just a forgotten chapter from a World War II history textbook. It is a terrible and eternally relevant warning about how easily one can sell their soul to the devil in exchange for the illusion of strength and a quick fix for problems. The war ended almost 80 years ago. The chemical blitzkrieg never did. It simply changed its uniform and found new battlefields, and its victims are still the millions who, unsuspecting, swallow the very same poison as Hitler's soldiers.